suffer, Batman, like I've suffered.
Hello everyone, I'm back, and this time I'm talking about Killer Croc and how dangerous he would be in real life. So if you hear any noises, it's because I have my dog right next to me, so I apologize in advance for that. So, because Killer Croc is probably the furthest away from being realistic of any hero or villain that I've covered, I'm going to give two different perspectives on the character. One version that is somewhat realistic and possible in real life, and then I'm going to just quickly go over the actual comic book counterpart. So, let's get started. Killer Croc was born Waylon Jones. As a boy, Waylon was different than the other children. Where other kids had baby teeth, Waylon had crocodile teeth, scales and claws, and maybe a tail. So, yeah, childhood wasn't great for Waylon, who had an abusive alcoholic mother and felt as though he was a freak, separate from society, with no chance at a normal life. Eventually, Waylon got away from his abusive mother and started a life with the only people that would accept him, the carnival. Unfortunately, it was the Gotham City Carnival, which, yeah, isn't a great place to be, but is great if you're going to become a villain eventually. Waylon made a living wrestling alligators and crocodiles and earned the nickname Killer Croc. Well, it wasn't an easy life, but it seemed that Waylon had finally found a home and a way to make a living. Well, that didn't last long, as Waylon's condition seemed to grow worse. He also turned to a life of crime. Feeling more and more distant from humanity, Waylon went from being a low-level thug with a skin condition into turning into a full-blown sewer-dwelling monster. At this point in his life, Waylon barely even resembled a human, and literally decided to live in the sewers and eat people, living up to his nickname Killer Croc. Typically, Croc is either held in Arkham Asylum, living in the sewers, working for other villains as an enforcer, or working for the Suicide Squad. So, first I'm going to discuss Croc's physiology, then how he would fight, and lastly, I'll give an overview on just how dangerous he would be. The reason for Killer Croc's physical makeup is that he suffers from a form of atavism. Atavism is generally a birth defect wherein a subject takes on the characteristics of their ancient ancestors. There doesn't seem to be any real life examples of people who look like crocodiles or monsters due to atavism, but there are a few people out there walking around with vestigial tails and slightly sharper than average teeth. This disease is very rare, and someone turning into a crocodile isn't really possible. But, I mean, everything's possible, I guess, in the comic land. But that doesn't mean that there can't be. I feel like I blew out everyone's eardrums. But that doesn't mean that there can't be a big crocodile man in real life. Killer Croc in the Arkham games is about 11 feet tall and 800 pounds. While there are humans that exist that are that heavy, it's usually because they are extremely obese, and the tallest person who ever lived that we know of was only 8 foot 11. But Killer Croc doesn't need to be that big. Let's say that the real life Croc is around 6 foot 6. So this is the height of someone who's slightly taller than the 99th percentile for height. For reference, Killer Croc at this height would be around a half foot taller than all the Robins and 4 inches taller than Batman. And at this height, a decent weight with a good amount of muscle would be around 300 pounds. That way, Croc could be physically imposing, but not exactly out of shape. Next, a real-life Killer Croc would likely not naturally have sharp teeth, claws, and tough skin. But through the process of cosmetic surgeries and body modification, he could have his teeth filed into points, metal claws similar to the ones that Catwoman uses, and a tattooed body that, kind of looks like crocodile scales. So how exactly would Killer Croc fight? Well, given his character, he wouldn't use any martial arts technique and likely would not use any weapons aside from weapons of opportunity, like throwing a big rock at Batman.
And I threw a rock at him!
Additionally, Killer Croc isn't exactly known for his high IQ, so we're unlikely to see any creative weapons use or tactics. That being said, Killer Croc's number one weapon is his intimidation factor. Imagine you are walking down an alleyway in Gotham at night, because you're an idiot, and you see a man. From far away, you can tell that he is huge. As you get closer, you see that he's not wearing a shirt, and his skin is a patchwork of greens, blacks, and yellows. You question in your head whether this person is suffering from some kind of illness. Now you are within 10 feet of the man, and you can see his face. Eyes yellow and cold, no facial hair. Small nubs instead of ears, a forked tongue, face covered by green and yellow features broken up by harsh black lines, and worst of all, those teeth. They are sharp and yellow. As the man opens his mouth, you're frozen. You want to run away, but also you can't turn away. The man steps closer to you. He towers over you, and his breath stinks. It's over. You can't get away now. You feel a tremendous amount of pressure on your neck, and as you lose consciousness, the last thing you notice is a horrible smell, and a feeling of running water as you're dragged into the Gotham City sewer. Anyway, Killer Croc's fighting style would probably look like that of a large, untrained man, so expect to see wild haymakers, inefficient movement, and limited cardio. However, due to Croc's animalistic nature, I would also expect to see scratches and bites that would look akin to a wild animal attack, and perhaps the unexpected explosive athleticism of a wild beast. So, just how dangerous would this relatively realistic Killer Croc be? I would put him at about a 4 out of 10. Like Bane, the last thing you would want to do would be to fight Killer Croc unarmed. However, the difference between Bane and Croc is that Bane knows how to fight, while Croc is just going to take a wild approach. I believe that there are people that exist that would not only be able to survive an encounter with Killer Croc unarmed, but would even be able to beat him up. These people would have to at least be decent martial artists, be a decent size, and be able to maintain composure when basically fighting someone that looks like a monster. But it's at least possible. Another reason why Croc's danger level is relatively low is his limited means to cause violence. Joker, Harley, and Bane could reasonably cause enough trouble that would require a military or SWAT intervention. This is due to their weapons and ability to lead and use tactics. Croc, on the other hand, really only has his physicality and appearance to rely on. Croc, at the end of the day, while still dangerous, is just a vicious thug who can be stopped with basic self-defense or a limited police presence. Now, a more comic book accurate Killer Croc, on the other hand, would be a... What the fuck? That's freaky. A more comic book accurate Killer Croc, on the other hand, would be a 6 out of 10 on the danger scale. Comic book Croc is 11 feet tall, has super strong skin, and is much more animalistic, and can bite off someone's hand in a second. This Killer Croc is only limited by his lack of intelligence and lack of weapons. If comic book Killer Croc actually went on a rampage, it would probably take police officers armed with rifles using prolonged fire to actually take him down. Now, Croc is the definition of brawn over brains, and either version of him would eventually be hunted down and stopped. So, that's the video, guys. Thank you for watching. I finally finished the bar exam, so videos won't be once every 2 months anymore. They'll probably be happening a little bit more often. I start working in a couple weeks, so I think I'll be able to work and do this at the same time. It shouldn't be too crazy. But thank you for watching the video. Next time, with the Suicide Squad movie coming out, I think I'm going to start talking about some of those villains in there. I really want to talk about that guy with the polka dots. I think his name is Crazy Quilt. I was going to make a video about him before, just because he's so random, but I actually couldn't find anything about his fighting style. So once I watch the Suicide Squad, I'll probably be able to have at least something to talk about. So look forward to that. And other videos on their way, like Deadshot, Deathstroke, and Green Arrow, and all those other people. Alright, later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.